morning, Tartaria Australia. Good morning, Cambell from Autodidactic, and good morning, our special guest, Violetta, live from Melbourne. Today, we're doing a really special world exclusive Tartaria Australia podcast, because today, for the first time ever, I think in the world, Cambell, I could be wrong, but maybe in the world for the first time ever, we are going to talk to Tartaria with a young person who has assimilated this information and basically evolved herself past 99% of all adults on the planet. Of all adults on the planet. So welcome to Tartaria Australia, Violetta, you smart kid, you.
Thank you.
So how you going? How are you today, Cambell? You good?
I'm good.
He's
good. Yeah, I'm always good.
All right. So Violetta, welcome to Australia, Tartaria Australia. So what we're going to do is slowly, and this is going out to the parents of the world who keep leaving comments on everything I make that says, Kelly, please stop swearing and let us show the kids about Tartaria. So here we are in an exclusive series that we will do. So I'm just going to put it out there to all the parents who are in our audience. If you have a genius, smart kid who has assimilated this information and would be eager and keen to get on and introduce themselves and have a chat with us, we would love to hear from you. So please volunteer your inspiring, brilliant children to the Tartaria cause. So we start to assimilate this information into the words of our kids. Amazing. So Violetta, welcome to the show. And tell us, how on earth did you come across Tartaria?
Well, we started watching some videos of it. We didn't really know that much what it was. So then my mum was getting into it and she was saying, this is good. This is like telling truths about whatever, this stuff. And then she was knowing about like all these buildings and how some were melted from like ages ago and stuff. And then some rocks, like mountains or whatever, they're like big ginormous trees. And so yeah, and then we started to get into it.
So you've been watching this with your mum. Awesome. And
Yes.
Obviously you must have come across Cambell and I doing Tartaria Australia too, because Cambell does some amazing podcasts on all the things to do with the melted buildings. Have you come across Star Forts, Violetta? Because that's...
Yeah, we've actually been watching some of your videos. We've been watching some, and then we've been watching some others to see if there's like similar and stuff. So yeah.
So tell me, have you guys been, now that you've sort of like come across the information, have you gone into the cities and started to see the buildings for yourselves? Has the way you viewed the city changed?
Well, we went into the city, I think last Saturday. We went there for the protest. Then we saw some like couple buildings, some churches and stuff, and I'm saying Tartaria. Tartaria. We saw a lot of Tartaria buildings, so I was just going like, Mum, Tartaria there. And then she's like, good work, Violetta, you can spot anything. But yeah, I have been spotting a lot of stuff of Tartaria in the city, more likely. And then we went to the Parliament House and there was this building that I saw, and then on the top I was thinking, oh, it's probably got like this thing that used to happen, like electrolytes that could connect to that building, goes down to underground. And I was telling my mum that, and she's like, good work, Violetta. Good finding.
So how have you, like, I mean, you've taken a giant leap forward in your understanding of what's going on planet Earth. Like you've gone from, I mean, okay, let's set the scene here. So you have gone through the Steiner school education, haven't you?
Yeah.
And currently you're not at Steiner school, are you?
No.
What's happened there?
Alrighty. Okay. So we were doing a play performance, and we were doing King Arthur and whatever that stuff. And I was doing the play, and then my mom's sending an email to school because it's like, if you go inside, you have to be double. If it's outside, it's fine. We're gonna have it inside, so we're gonna have it inside the school hall. And so my mum's saying sending an email to the school saying, if it's inside, my daughter will not do the play, and I will not come either. And so then I talk to mum and say, how about I don't do the play, but then I can just watch it. And I'm only watching it. It's because it's unfair for the other people that are not. And that's what I basically did. And then I wanted to hang out with probably some of my friends and just watch it. And then my English teacher's pulling the rope, saying in an email saying, Violetta was a really good actor in this thing, so I really worked hard with her doing her crown and her dress, whatever. So, and I just felt like she's just pulling the rope, she's pulling it closer and closer. I told mum that, and then mum's like, yeah, I do think that as well. She's trying to pull you, with a rope. I'm just like,
what do you mean pull you into the?
Yeah, pull me into the play so then I do it. But I'm not going to do it anyways.
So you're not going to do it because you are not getting you guys aren't getting. Yeah. So basically now you guys are on school camp, horse camp right now, and you're not allowed to go, are you?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to go because I had trauma in my nose when I was younger. I slipped in the bath and my nose split here, and so I need stitches and stuff, and so ever since I have not put stuff in my nose and stuff.
What, you mean the PCR test?
Yeah, the PCR test. And my mum was talking to a doctor saying, so the doctor was saying, you've only got two options. You don't do it, or you just get it in and go to school.
So just by choosing not to do the PCR test and not getting vaccinated, you can no longer attend school?
No.
At all?
At all, for 2 weeks. And the girl who got, if she gets another test and she comes out negative, she'll probably come to school next week.
So before you are allowed to?
Yeah, before me.
Well, it's a messy situation, So, okay, so you're at home right now. You've been exiled from the Steiner School. The Steiner schools are definitely falling around Australia. And but here you are on this extraordinary world exclusive Tartaria Australia podcast as the first child ever in the history of the universe to sit here and talk to Cambell and I about this. So, Cambell, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, what do you think? Obviously, the school's been weird for the last couple of years. Do you think you're learning more by yourself, going out there and researching, or do you think you're learning more at school?
I actually feel like I'm learning more out of school, because when you're learning in school, it's like that one teacher has to go to everyone and say, yeah, you got to do this, you got to do that. I got to just do it by myself when I'm out free. Free. Easier.
Free.
So with the Steiner schools, Violetta, do they teach you that the earth is flat or round?
Round.
Yeah. So have you had debates with your friends at school about the shape of the earth?
I never really mention it with my friends because they're always going to go yeah, it's round. And I always say, can you explain how it's round? And they always come up with the dumb excuses, just saying it's just round. Scientists say that. And I'm just like, yeah, media tells you fake news. All fake. It's flat. It's like if you see a boat and then it's going on sea and then you can't see it anymore, get a camera or a GoPro or whatever, zoom up, you can see it. And it's flat.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't go over the edge and there's no edge.
And also, like the level of water, isn't it? Like water's always finding this flat level. Like, that all builders in the world, they use a thing called a spirit level, which is basically water in this long, like, device that allows them to know that they're building straight and square. So, I
Level.
mean, what other proofs have you come across with flat Earth, Violetta? What other things have you discovered on your search?
It's also like when you're going on a plane, right? And you know how they've got the windows curved like that. So they're making you think the world is round. But if you had that straight, you can see the world could be flat. That's what they're trying to trick your minds with. Like pilots, they're going and they've got their windows like that, so they can see the world round. Even like the passengers, they have the side things like this, round. They're trying to trick with your mind. That's what they're trying to do.
I think you're so right, because like Charlie's teacher at the Steiner School has told her the Earth is round based on his experience in an aeroplane and looking out of those curved windows.
I can't believe that. I flew a lot when I was young, and I knew when I was 5. I was asked, why are these windows all curved? Why are they all weird? I actually never knew that people didn't get that. I thought that was obvious, but you hear it a lot now. People are like, oh, you look out the window and it's curved. It's like, yeah, and the window's that one really freaks me out. It's just so obvious that they're curved. It's just bizarre.
And also, of course, all the pilots in the world, they use longitude and latitude as their guidance system, which is basically based on a flat realm. You've come across this, haven't you, Violetta? Like, how would you explain that, when you're in an aeroplane and they're not sort of taking care of that curve every 5 seconds? Yeah. So how would you explain that to other kids?
Oh, that's kind of difficult. Well, you know how planes, they just go up in the sky? And you know how they go straight? They always just go straight. Why do people think they could just go like this, round and round and round and round and round? No, you go straight like that.
Across a flat realm. It's true. Yeah. Like pilots don't, because if it was round, they'd have to go up, and then they'd go across, and then they'd have to like pivot down again to keep themselves level, and keep pivoting down and keep pivoting down to take care of this curved Earth as they go around it to get from one place to the other. And the other interesting one was that if you look at the flight paths and you go from one country to another country, and then on our current round map idea, we end up having a stopover way over here, like in a country that's well off the flight path. But then if you flatten that map out, it's in a straight line. That's another big one as well. So understanding that the Earth may be flat, Violetta, how has that changed your idea of the planet you're standing on?
I was just like, why is the Earth flat at first? I was kind of confused with that. And then I was like, oh, well, that's a new thing in my life. And then I was wondering because we're watching this other thing on like the space, like this person's saying that we have like a dome and it's filled with like water maybe or whatever. And it's like, I'm thinking, if it's filled with water, then how would we get into a spaceship and go over to planets? And then my mom was like, yeah, how would that happen? And then I'm thinking, so would we be the center? Because you know how scientists say that the sun is the center. probably we're the center.
Yeah.
And it's just the sun goes like that, goes like there, moon comes and just changes, goes straight like that.
Mm. Do you want to explain, Campbell, where we're at with the idea of the shape of the planet?
Yeah. So with the sun, obviously they tell us it's 93 million miles away, and this is where a lot of globers, you say flat Earth, and they're like, oh, that wouldn't work because the sun's so big, everything would be in daytime all the time. But they don't understand it's a completely different model. So obviously on a flat Earth, the moon and the sun are inside. They're inside the closed system with us, and they're much smaller and much closer. And they travel around the tropics, the Tropic of Cancer, out to the Tropic of Capricorn, and that gives us our summer and winter. When it's on the inside circle, it's summer on the north. When it's on the outside, it's summer on the in this what we call the south. So yeah, it's a different way. You've got it's a different system. You can't look at a flat Earth system from a globe Earth mind. Of course, it doesn't make sense. That's just silly. And then water above, right? So what are stars? This is the big thing that got me was the lack of parallax, which means when you look at stars, they never move. So they tell us they're all millions and millions of miles away, and they're not connected to each other. It's just where we are in space. When we look at them, they make a certain shape. Now, if we're traveling at, 666 million, no doubt, miles in a second or something, we would get a different perspective, and those systems would start to change. They'd start to turn, and we wouldn't have the same star systems. Definitely, we wouldn't have the ones that we had 1,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago, and the great year and precession and all this stuff just goes out the window.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, isn't it? Like when we look at this idea of what the Earth could potentially be, I'm sure you've got some brilliant pictures, Campbell, but like the idea that we're on a flatter realm, and that we're surrounded by an ice wall in this realm, and that we have a moon and a sun that's the same size, that's just going around here with our constellation and with our stars within a closed system. So have you ever thought, Violetta, like, why do the stars never change? Like if we're flying through space and flying in this uncontrolled wobbly ball of space, just twisting and turning and flying, then all the stars would constantly be changing around us. But all those stars have been used to navigate with sailors, and anyone wanting to use the stars as a guidance system has stayed the same throughout history. Like it never changes. Why do we think astrology works? So this is sort of the idea here, that the moon and the sun just keeps going around, and then we get this, they move closer to the equator, or not the equator, closer to the center, and then further away. And that's where we get this idea of seasons. So it's pretty amazing. Like it definitely changes our idea of what our Earth is. So have you heard about the ice wall?
Yeah, I have heard about the ice wall.
That potentially we're surrounded by a wall of ice.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool, because, we know that, like I always wondered growing up, we got told this idea always that, everything in the world has been explored. There's nothing new to discover. The age of explorers is over. And I always used to think, but hang on a minute, we never go to Antarctica. I don't know anything about Antarctica. Like all I ever see is these little documentaries about penguins and polar bears and seals. I never see anyone going past that little, the first few Ks into Antarctica. And I'm like, that always made me question, what is in Antarctica? Now, what we've pieced together is that Antarctica there's a lot going on in this world of Antarctica. Number one, hello, pussycat. Number one, we hear a lot of talk about there being massive land masses past that ice wall. beautiful land masses, like a whole other realm. Like, have you seen or read Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. Okay, so like Lord of the Rings, it has like this ice dome thing around. Yeah. And so when you go into it, it's like a different world or something.
Yeah. All these stories that we get told, that there's like Middle Earth and Outer Earth and Inner Earth, and that there's all these other continents and land masses and all these other types of people there, like the elves and the dwarfs and the hobbits, and all these like other, what we would call multi-dimensional consciousness. So different but similar to our life form, I guess. And they live in other realms, other continents that are past our ice circle. So, I mean, like, it's pretty exciting to understand this, Violetta, because this means if you want to grow up and be an explorer, there is so much left to explore. There is literally realms upon realms upon realms unexplored to us, and maybe only shown to us in movies like Lord of the Rings. Or what are some of the other movies, Cambell?
Gosh, there's so many out there. And when we get like, what is it? Dark Crystal, Labyrinth,
Labyrinth,
all that kind of stuff, different realms, a lot of sci-fi stuff, a lot of it, most of it, they turn into sci-fi and they put out in space, but they're really talking about, outer space, right? The space outside of our realm. And that's what an extraterrestrial is, someone from more land, more territory. So all these terms, they all link into a flat realm, but they give us they want us to think that it means space. So we get it all, Planet of the Apes, even, going back to there, all these different stories. There was even a series called Under the Dome.
Yes, there was.
Where people got trapped in under this dome and they had to work out how to escape. Kind of sounds a bit like us, right? So, so what is this dome? Can we get out? Is there more land in here? Have you ever looked at many maps, Violetta, of the world?
No.
Earth maps? If you look at maps, you'll find that the Pacific Ocean, especially when they show you the globe, literally half of the globe is just water. There's nothing there. And we've got this massive, massive space, and they say there's no land there. But then we've got these old maps that show land masses there and all these. So there could be land that we don't know about in here with us. We just don't know because we're not allowed to go there, are we? This is the problem. We can't go to Antarctica or the Arctic. You'd have a hard time just sailing across the Pacific Ocean, I think.
Yeah. So we can't travel to explore these lands at the moment, and potentially we've also got things like GPS and Google Earth. We've got things like Google Earth, which have you ever played with Google Earth? Have you ever used it before? Yeah. So we've got this technology that we've been handed that says to us we can use this technology to look at the whole planet. We can use this technology and we can see it all. But imagine if they created that technology not to show us things, but to hide things from us. So that they're saying to us, here it all is, it's all transparent, but in actual fact, they've deleted a whole chunk of the world from Google Earth. So we never even know it existed. It's a crazy world, isn't it, Violetta? It's a crazy world we live in right now.
Yeah, it is.
So, all right. So you have, sorry, go on, Cambell.
I was going to say, you mentioned fake news before and that all the news is fake. And the saying we have is, that's all fake, and all the what they want us to believe are fairy tales. That's the truth. All these castles and wizards and elves and dwarfs and all this stuff. That seems to be the truth, but they're just trying to make us believe, no, that's just fantasy. That's just for, little kids. Don't believe that. That's silly. So everything's backwards, isn't it? It's a bit confusing living in this world sometimes, isn't it?
Because we have to have a look, Violetta, at the fact that all these beautiful castles exist around the world. Like the one behind you, it's a beautiful, beautiful castles that look like the castles we see in Disney and in cartoons and in stories like King Arthur and all of these gorgeous, beautiful castles. And so we get taught that they're actually in these stories, in these fairy tales, and most people don't even realize how many are actually here in the realm right now. Like if you type in, castles, you'll come up with some amazing on the realm right now, buildings all over the planet. Buildings all over the planet. So if those castles existed, and all the cartoons tell us that those castles were full of magical beings and magical creatures and magical talking animals and elves and all sorts of like characters and fairies, because we've pieced together that potentially fairies, their first potentially was when they actually connected or brought humans together with beetles and bugs, and so we get these little flying human beings. Have you seen, Violetta, the fairy skeletons?
No.
Let me show you a fairy skeleton.
Yeah.
A fairy
This
skeleton.
we have lots of skeletons and skulls and things, and they always put them in these little obscure museums, and they don't tell anyone. And they just say, "Oh, that's just crazy," but they're all there.
Yeah, let me screen
If
share.
you want to.
So this is some of the tiny. Oh, this is some of the skeletons. This is one with a bit of an alien or alien. Well, when we say alien, when we say alien, what we actually mean is just a consciousness that is
Not
what
human.
would you say? Not human. And in
Human.
There's another one. How's that?
Have you got the one? I can't remember the name of the museum, but there's definitely one with wings.
Yeah,
is that it there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Fairies are real. Fairies are real. All right, I don't know if that's real or not. That's pretty scary. But basically, like what we can say with all of this is that there's so much we don't understand about our planet. And the way to find that information is starting to break down our idea that what we've been taught in school is the truth, and what we've been taught of fairy tales are like just fairy tales, when in actual fact, this work is showing us that we live right now on a realm that was made by giants. Violetta, tell me what you think about these giant buildings that you're looking at now with these giant windows and these giant doorways.
So when I come across a building, I can sometimes see if there's windows on the ground level, people say. It actually means there's something underneath that. So like, the thing, like your background that you have right now might have windows on the floor level and you just don't see it or know it. It's got underground stuff under it. Like, I don't know, whatever. And it's like, this is probably nothing to do with that, but you remember the earthquake that happened?
What, here in Melbourne?
Yeah, here in Melbourne. So it on the news, it was saying it was 10,000 kilometers down.
10 kilometers. I think it was 10 kilometers.
Or 10 kilometers.
Yeah, 10 kilometers.
10 kilometers. And so what that means is something's under it that people are trying to do, or they've got something like bombs under there. Because my mom, she was like talking about there's something under there, like because I think like some Australians were trying to find some bombs from somewhere, and so they couldn't find it, but they found like a little bit, So that's what they did. They did it up there in Mount Buller,
Yeah, it was around that area. Yeah.
and it went all the way down to Tassie.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's Australia doesn't get earthquakes, does it?
No, it doesn't.
What are earthquakes, Campbell? How would you describe earthquakes?
The mainstream narrative tells us that we live on tectonic plates, and that's why we have continents. A continent is a landmass that's just on one plate. And when these plates move, because we're all sitting on, magma, right? We're sitting on liquid fire, and they move and they rub against each other. And when they do that, we get an earthquake. But of course, Australia is a continent. We are on a tectonic plate. We're not particularly near the edge of it, so we shouldn't get earthquakes at all.
Yeah. So what are they then, Campbell?
Explosions from under the ground. There's a lot going on underground. There's a whole world right down there. I watched a video yesterday, and these guys in England went down, an old manhole, and they found this massive tunnel system, and they were going underneath a river. Like, these tunnels were lower than the bottom of the river.
Wow.
They were going along, and they got down there, and then way down, there was a canal, and there was this boat went through it. This little skinny boat, way under the ground, full of with a couple of people on it, and they were hiding, freaking out, going, "Oh my God, what is this? What's going on?"
Wait, so let me get this right. It was a water, like a stream underneath the river.
Way underneath the river, like a man-made canal, with a canal boat, and this canal boat went along, and they were freaking. So they were underneath. They were, I don't know how many stories down, like 10 stories underground kind of thing.
Wow.
And there's all these people, and there's people down there and boats and things going on, and they're like, what? So we just don't know. It's like Antarctica, right? We're not allowed to dig. We're not allowed to dig anywhere. Which is why they have all these, things like cemeteries. You can't go and dig up. Or everything's archaeological, right? You've got to be an archaeologist, or else you can't go there and check it out. That's just how they hide stuff. That's just their way of hiding stuff. That's it.
So there is actually a law, isn't it, that when we buy property, we only own, I don't know the actual law, but it's like we only own like 3 feet underground or something, and then the rest is, So we don't have, if we buy a farm, we don't have the rights to dig down on our own land. And this is because that we know that they know that our entire underground of this realm is full of basically a second world. Like, we've got a second realm going on underneath this earth. And, all of our buildings, we can see, Violetta, and you would see by now when you said they've got the little windows. So we can see now that when you go into the city, and all the kids can look at this, you go into the city, and where you've got the hills of the city, all the buildings are built into those hills. So normally when you build something, you take away all the soil and you flatten it out, and then you build on a flat, level surface. But if you walk through all of our cities around Australia and around the world, these buildings are into the hills. So you get these windows that get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, until you have these little widgets, little tiny fairy windows that serve no point in a building. Like, can you imagine building a house today, including these little itty bitty windows? And you can see that all over the world. And same with the doorways. They start so big, so big that you get basically a Zeppelin in there or an aeroplane, and then they get so small that maybe a little dog can get through them. And this is because they're all basically been buried in what we would call the mud flood. So what do you know about the mud flood, Violetta?
Well, I don't really know that much about the mud flood, to be honest. I haven't watched that much videos on it. But there was this lady who was saying, because there was some earthquakes or something wrong in like Japan. This is like, I don't know, 2016 or 2011. And so it's like the floor level was all like liquidy and would sunk
Yeah.
the buildings down. And so it was just taking the buildings down lower and lower and lower, and people dying, and stuff. And so they didn't know, like the media didn't know what to call it, so they just call it like quicksand or something, just like that. Something happened, or like there's a volcano under and it's like all melting. That's why. That's what the media was saying, but this lady was saying, no, it's actually this thing that actually causes the earth to, melt the floor level.
Liquefaction.
Yeah,
It's called liquefaction when the earth vibrates really fast and all the earth turns to water, basically, to water-like stuff, and buildings sink down in it. Which we see a lot. So there's all these things. And quicksand, how come everyone knows about quicksand but no one's ever seen it?
Yep.
Like, what's going on there?
That's so true.
We've
like
all got this fear of quicksand, haven't we? It's like we've all got this fear. Oh my God, I'm sinking. Throw me a stick.
Yeah,
but we've never seen it.
That's so true. It's in all the cartoons. It's in all the kids' movies. It's quicksand. You would have seen that Violetta before, like Tarzan, all those sorts of like stories. It's quicksand, and it's true. Like I've never. It's just like it's kind of like COVID. Like, has anyone actually seen it? Like, like we've never seen it in reality. But like, yeah, it's just the leftover fragments of the truth, which is that liquefaction, which is really interesting. Because the way that works is through vibration. So, and things speeding up to a point where they just actually lose their form would be the quickest way of putting it. So when our ground feels hard and solid, if you vibrate that quick enough, it starts to lose that solidity and starts to like become a liquid-like substance. And when we look at Tartaria, one of the big things about Tartaria is that they use sound a lot, because if you look at these beautiful old buildings and all these beautiful churches, they are full of all these massive organs, like these huge. Have you seen an organ in a church, Violetta? Have you been in and seen a giant organ? Yeah. Well, they use that in combination with water to create vibrations and frequency. So that mud flood, I guess we would say, was almost a weapon, would you say, Cambell, against the realm?
Yeah, I think it's part of it. I mean, I think, there's a couple of things, but definitely vibration, sound, dew-type weapons. I mean, we have the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, right, where they collapsed the walls, and what did they do? They marched around it 7 times, stopped and blew their trumpets sound, and the walls collapsed.
Yep.
So this is the thing. We've even got pictures of sound weapons back from World War One. These things that look like big tubers, and they're actually weapons. So yeah, sound is a big thing.
Yeah.
And again, right, they don't want us to know that because they're using it against us as we speak, probably, all this frequency kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Violetta, tell me, like, how would you summarize this information to other kids? Like, if you were to try to like teach them about Tartaria, what would you say?
That's quite hard, because well, some of them, I know it's like they'll probably just be like, that's not true, that's totally not true, you're telling lies, like this person's correct and you're not. It's like they're believing the media more than just one person's actually telling the truth about the world.
More like they're believing in their teachers.
Yeah, they're believing in their teachers because they think they're older and they know more knowledge.
So let's imagine that they're forced to listen to you and they can't talk back. What would you say to them about, just say you were just like wanting to sort of summarize all of this in a couple of minutes. Like, what would you say?
I would tell them all about probably like the buildings, and then how how like the giants and stuff, how tall they were. And I would tell them about like the mountains and some like what else? And I'll tell them about the world and how it's flat, and also how like the planes, they just convince you how it's round. And also they have an ice dome around the earth, and how the moon and sun are actually smaller than the earth, and they just go around like that.
Perfectly, forever and ever and ever, never stopping.
Clock.
So the earth is a giant clock.
Yeah.
It's true. The earth is a giant clock. So it's a pretty profound concept. I mean, to alter the idea that the earth is not round, it's flat, that we have a dome around us. Like, you know, those, what are they called where you have the plants in the fishbowl? A terrarium. Have you have a, yeah. So, and you know what? There's some theories out there, Violetta, that above that firmament is water, which we talked about just before, and underneath us is water. And actually, we are basically surrounded in water, like a fish tank, like fish in a fishbowl. That's a pretty crazy idea, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Do you want to talk about that? I find that crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, hello. The idea that we're surrounded by water above and below us, that still blows my mind. I don't understand that yet.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I'm very confused about that one.
Me too. Well, how are you on that one,
Maybe all
Cambell?
there is water. Maybe all there is water, and they've just created a space within the water for this realm. You know, we don't really know what is, you know, is there a constant to the universe or whatever? You know, what's the medium? It could just be water. Who knows?
So yeah,
it's a tough one though. I mean, then you get the stars, right? And I still haven't, you know, I still don't completely understand that. I understand, you know, the star in a jar and all this kind of stuff, and you know, twinkling, you know, sort of lights in water, but yeah, why they don't move? If they're in water, why don't they move? What aren't you know? But someone has come up with a thing saying that other stars reflecting from things that are in the ocean.
maybe the stars are like, maybe it's connected to other fish bowls.
Yeah. I was about to say, I think they're portals of some kind.
Well, it's a pretty crazy idea, but if we take the idea that we have Hollywood, basically, because like that's fair to say. Would you say, Violetta, that your whole understanding of space and the planets has come from movies and drawings in your school books? Like mainly from the movies. Hollywood has painted space for us. And so we've come up with this idea that space, this concept that the universe is space and that it's empty. They've said it's empty, vacuumous, there's nothing in it, there's no oxygen, it's just space. But from the Tartarian perspective, we would fill all of that space in with water, which is pretty profound leap in our understanding. And that means that in order to leave our dome, our firmament, we don't know what we're being faced with. Is it going to be, because, you know, have you seen, Violetta, the images of the rocket ships? Like, you know, when the rocket ships, they go up and then they always curve and come down. And the ones that get up close to the firmament, there's like a water spray. There's like, you can see like a boat's going across this ocean. That's what it looks like. We'll bring that up here when we edit this video. Yeah. And I mean, like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. There was a big one, I think it was last year, was it, or the year before? And everyone's saying, what is this? It's some weird comet. And when you look at it, it literally looks like a spaceship rubbing against water. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, you know, if we, is that why they're called ships, right? Spaceships, because it's water. We need to take a scuba tank.
Yeah.
Or are there other ways to get in and out? Is it all portals, or they're underground tunnels that you need, because if you go back to World War II and the name that you can't mention, the swastika people, they had submarines, and there's coordinates telling them how to get out of the realm, basically, literally go here, turn here, go this far, make this heading, and so can we get out? Are there people coming through tunnels? Because if there's tunnels all under the ground, you'd think that they'd go into the ocean as well, and there's tunnels out to different realms.
It's like in
Are they
Pirates of the
actual
Caribbean.
tunnels?
Have you seen Pirates of the Caribbean? Did you
Seen a
you
couple
watched that
of
on the
them.
weekend with Charlie? Yes. So
Yeah.
So in Pirates of the Caribbean, I don't know which one it is. The pirate ships, I think that's really interesting. Spaceships are called ships. The pirate ships go down a whirlpool and then upside down and appear up on the right side again. Was that in one of the movies you watched on the weekend, Violetta?
No, we didn't watch that one.
Okay, yeah. So they went through a whirlpool in the ocean. Yep, upside down, and it reappeared. Have you seen the movie the BFG? The Big Friendly Giant? And what happens in that one? Do you remember?
It's like whatever the little girl's name is, she follows the giant and she doesn't know what the giant is or whatever. So the giant grabs her and then they go in this portal thingo. And then he's in his homeland and he's at his home and there's all these other giants as well.
And do you remember that they get to a giant tree and then they jump into the water and then they flip up the right side up into the human realm, and then to get back to the giant realm they jump in and flip up the right side. And those giants, so the idea, like the BFG, that there was giants, that there's a realm full of giants, Jack and the Beanstalk, that you climb up the beanstalk and there's giants up in the lands. And this is interesting for all the giant loving kids out there. Like when those giants were here on the planet, we had everything was giant. There was giant trees and there was giant animals, and the consciousness was gigantic. So we had giants. And then those giant trees have all been cut down or fallen down. And that's what has made up our mountains. And the story goes, just like Jack and the Beanstalk, that those giants would go up those trees because they were so big. They were like hundreds of Ks into the sky, and they'd get up to the top of those trees and then they'd be in another realm. And isn't that interesting? Because I know at school you've studied like Olympus and Zeus and the gods and the Greek mythology. And that's all about going up into the heavenly realms, into and the same thing. So all these doorways and portals and giant trees, very much a part of our true history. What do you think about that? Don't you think that's crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. How would you explain that to your friends? Jack and the Beanstalk, true story?
Yeah.
So you live in a world. Go on, Cambell.
It's like quicksand. How come we all know what a giant is?
Yeah. We all know about giants. We all know about quicksand. We all know about spaceships. We all know about, ships. And then we all know about fairy tales and fairies and centurions and all the magical creatures of our history. And we all live in cities surrounded by giant buildings, giant doorways, giant windows that have been buried in some form of mud and that have giant undergrounds. That's basically a good summary of where we stand with Tartaria Australia. So I've got one final question for you, because you've done really well for that. It's been a long, long lesson for you.
There will be a quiz.
Quiz at the end.
It's going to be a test.
So, what's so cool about where we live here in Australia is that in Australia, our history says we're only 200 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we look at these buildings that they built basically 200 years ago, without light bulbs and without power tools and without any, people or quarries or help. Like, we've got a really interesting country to look at from history. Hey, so what were you taught at school is the story of how Australia came to be?
Because like all the countries were connected together, and then I think there was like one day when they split up, and then they went in their own ways, and then because Antarctica was connected to Australia, and so there's like this big chunk of like, I think this is like North Territory down there somewhere. It's like where Antarctica was connected to Australia, and it just chopped off and then left 100 like kilometers away, like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all they taught me.
And so what did they teach you about Australia's history?
That
Captain Cook and everything.
Yeah, about like people having war, and then like the British coming over to Australia, taking over.
Yeah.
Originals and like
Convicts. Do you know about the convicts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so were you
they
taught?
Tell me I'm a convict.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely pirate.
Big
So
generous.
were you taught that that Captain Cook arrived on his boats, and then they basically colonized Australia, and basically went to war with our Indigenous, and then built Australia from scratch? Were you taught that there was nothing here before they arrived?
No.
At school?
No.
What did school tell you?
No, they just told us Australia was there.
Yeah, but that we built everything, right? That Australia was there, and all that were here were just our Indigenous.
Oh, Indigenous.
There was no buildings here, or
they just said there wasn't like buildings. They just built it themselves, like the Aboriginals.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you know that Captain Cook sailed around the Antarctic wall? Did you know that? He tried to actually sail around Antarctica. And how long was he gone? I think it took him 2.5 years or something. And he ended up proving that he went over 60,000 kilometers, and Antarctica is supposed to be like 10 or 12,000, I think. So he actually went out and saw the ice wall and kind of proved that the Earth was flat as well. And another thing, I see you've got horses in the background there. Have you ever thought about horses and camels in Australia and how they got here?
No.
Because you know what the story is, that they came across on these little boats, and then they tell us that these boats took 6 to 9 months to get here. So do you think a horse could stand still on a little boat for 6 to 9 months to come to Australia?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
There's lots of fun. There's lots of questions, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, because all of our animals, basically, the like horses, the camels, the sheep, the donkeys, the pigs, they all had to get here by boat because they weren't native to Australia. We had kangies and emus and wombats. But yeah, all our farming animals, they were all meant to come in on these fleets of boats. But can you imagine bringing all those animals out over 6 to 9 months at sea, all their manure and feeding them, plus like the humans on board? We don't think that story's very historically accurate ourselves. So I reckon, Cambell, like we might wrap it up there, because kiddo, you've just done an hour and a half almost of school.
Oh, wow.
School of the New Earth, may I just say. Can you imagine, Violetta, actually like sitting in a classroom learning the true history of the world? How would you feel about that if you were actually learning this in your classrooms?
Oh, I would be like, yes.
It would make
like, is this more fun, more interesting than what they teach
it
you
is
at
more
school?
interesting. It is.
because
Awesome.
there's mystery and magic, and it all makes sense, because what can we do? We can see it with our own eyes. And that is the key, kids, when you're looking at the true history of the world. Like, you can see it with your own eyes. You can go with your mum and dad into any town, any city, anywhere in the world, and go and look with your own eyes at these buildings, at the giant doors and the giant windows, and built into these hills that they get smaller and smaller. You can actually see it. You can go and test out the flat earth versus the round earth with your own eyes. You can go, as Violetta gave the excellent example, you can get binoculars and you can watch those ships going out onto the horizon and see if you can see them disappearing over a curve, or if they just continue on smaller and smaller. Like, there's so many wonderful experiments you can do to test out this truth. And you know what's so fun about it? If we're right, it means that all of the magic still exists. All of the giants and the fairy tales, all the stories you grew up reading when you were kids, they're real. So Tartaria, yeah. And so when we watch things like, well, in my Cambell and I day, it was Indiana Jones, the great explorer who would go into jungles and castles and undergrounds and do awesome stuff. Like, that is the future of our children. So you know what, Violetta, I've got to say, you are a lucky generation, because every single thing that is a possibility is open to you to explore from here on in. Like, we live in an unexplored realm right now with unexplored magic everywhere. And that's the magic of Tartaria.
Yeah. That's the awakening, right? We get to see it all again. Break the spell.
We get to see it all again. So, kiddo, you've done amazing. Thank you for joining us today. Is there anything you would like to say to wrap it up?
Thank you for letting me be here and for letting me learn more stuff. And yeah.
Well, you've been awesome, man. You are truly the first child to get up and speak about Tartaria and the earth, and to actually like have some idea of what we're talking about here. So congratulations. You must know you have a brilliant genius mind on you, and you are going to have a brilliant genius life ahead of you, kiddo.
Yeah.
Because if you start, it's taken Cambell and I our whole lives to understand this. Like, I'm 44. It's taken me 4 decades to get to the information you're assimilating at your age. So imagine what you'll be thinking when you're my age. You're going to be having the most brilliant genius thoughts when you're 44 years old. And I cannot wait to watch you grow up. I cannot wait to see what you do and what you create and produce. It's going to be amazing. You, kiddo, are the kids of the future. You are going to build this new earth. I'm so honored and proud to meet you. Well done.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, definitely. Go and create the future, right? Go and tell your friends that it's all a big lie. they're being scammed.
Yeah, go and challenge your teachers.
The truth, we can't challenge your teachers.
Yeah,
go and ask your science teacher how a vacuum can exist next to a, what is it? How a vacuum can exist next to an enclosed system without a barrier. Ask them that. Do you know that one?
You'll have to write that one.
You know how we
down.
have space and all these planets, and they say it's a vacuum. There's no air. You can't have that unless it's in a container, right? Because we've got air on Earth, so that there has to be a dome or a firmament between space and us for space to be a vacuum. Go and ask your science teacher to prove that one.
Well, of course, it's really
interesting. Go back to school.
Yeah,
you should all go back to school for a day and sit in there. And
oh, wouldn't we love that? Well, the amazing thing is the schools of New Earth, the intentional schools that are being created, they're all going to have science and history teachers that are made up of people like Cambell and I, who are going to be teaching the true history to our kids. And you guys are you're going to grow up knowing the truth, and and this whole realm's going to make so much sense to you that your minds will be free from all this confusion, and you're just going to be able to do brilliant things. And we're so excited to be part of that changeover right now. So for all the parents out there, I think Cambell and I are going to put together a bit of a criteria, a curriculum, a teaching curriculum that because most of, so Violetta, the other thing is about Tartaria Australia is that most of the kids most of the parents who have kids, they're all at home as well. Like most of our audience, pretty much all of them have refused the vaccine and refused it for their kids. And so you're all at home right now. Well, so yeah, so it would be so cool if we had a kid network who could actually get on for a couple of hours every week and like discuss these amazing ideas. And maybe Cambell and I can help facilitate that and, pop in as some cool teachers every now and again. So that's a call out to all of our audience and parents out there who actually are in that situation and do actually want to create that network and do want to have their kids make contact with each other. Then leave us a message. Let's see what we can facilitate here, because that's the future. That is our future.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wouldn't you love that? Wouldn't you? Because Violetta, the thing is, like, Cambell and I love hanging out with like-minded people. We love hanging out with our community of Tartarian hunters, and you will love hanging out with Tartaria kid hunters. You guys are the new generation. It would be so much. Can you imagine how fun it would be if there was like 10 of you and you're all running around the city as a big gang making videos of like all these cool Tartarian buildings? Wouldn't you love that? Yeah, I know.
Definitely needs to be a channel, I think, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll put that into the ether. We'll imagine that one and we'll see what we can concoct. I'm just introducing Anna, Violetta's mum, just very quickly to the podcast to tell us what are your thoughts about kids right now and homeschooling and Tartaria and all of this?
I think it's amazing this time in history right now. And like what I'm observing, like within Violetta and also our son, is that there's that deconditioning process of being curious is not a problem. Yeah, it's like they are allowed to have a look at what's actually out there and start to inquire, but have a deeper inquiry. And that there's a community of people that are also doing that, like that are actually saying no to what doesn't feel okay. And what I've noticed is when we have looked at Tartaria, I can't even begin to tell you, it's like this freedom again, like things start to make sense. And it's not because there's exact proof all the time, but there's a sensibility in it. And anything that keeps them curious about their surrounds and their environment, I think is absolutely positive to their development. Who knows where this all goes? But she's now got to learn how to actually, what am I seeing? What does that mean? Okay. And then dive deeper into all of that. So I just see the Tartarian kids being able to dive deeper in their own inquiries as a group as well. Like, I'm like, when she was saying she hasn't had a look at maps, I'm like, let's get some maps. You know what I mean? Like, and then there's so many things that you were bringing up in the chat just before of, it's like a whole curriculum's laid out, like literally, like earthquakes, liquefaction, the firmament,
giant trees is mountains,
exactly.
Yep.
And it's really interesting because in the Steiner School, they're actually really learning about all those mysteries, all those epochs. They're all there. It's just that they don't quite know that they were real. That's all. It changes it, yeah.
It does change it. Yeah, I know. Like Charlie's doing a play about the Olympiads right now, and the gods, So they definitely get taught this sort of very strongly the mythology that surrounds our legends and our stories. But like, oh my God, she's convinced the Earth is round.
That's okay. It's a process. I think that's it. It's like, and just even with other kids putting things in front of them, just to, that take off each layer of, the onion. And it's like, essentially everyone will come to this other place in terms of understanding because there's just so much in front of us. There's so much.
Yeah, and they just need to be able to ask questions. That's the problem with school, They say it's for education, but you're not allowed to ask questions. And that's what they should be able to, every question is relevant. Every question is right, and it should be treated that way.
Yeah, and when you stand up to something like that, even as young people, it's like it's not really warranted. Like they don't want it, you know, and even more so now. So it's really like this is a time where you need to, you know, like move from the institutional side of things and really set your own path and educate the kids how you best can, you know, like it's an amazing world out there.
Yep, agreed. Look, I'm so eager and keen to create a curriculum for our young people. I don't know if you'd be interested in.
Yeah, easy.
Yep, working with us on that one, because I just think it would be so profoundly amazing if we could like hand down to you now like a file of maps, a file of pictures on the trees, a file of skeletons, a file of, you know, like real science, looking at the firmament and the dome and all and our, you know, the shape of the earth. Like it would be so amazing for you guys to be able to work through, you know, those folders once a week.
Yeah, and it's just really about allowing the kids to actually bring what it means for them to start building these structures within them, because they don't have them yet if they, you know, haven't been exposed to all this permission. Deconditioning time.
It's pretty cool to walk through the cities with each other now, isn't it? How much more fun is it now? You know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
like I noticed that Violetta's got energy. She's like, oh my God, Mum, look at that one. You know, it's like normally it'd be boring. We don't really walk through the cities, you know, but like, you know, there's excitement, you know, so awesome. And the thing is that I was even just thinking that even the learning of taking videos and putting things together, that's like in itself, you know, they can learn these sort of things as well. You know, this is what I've noticed today. Wow, this is what I'm diving into. Post it, you know?
Yeah, documentary style. Kids, the kids that are like documenting the truth, like it's really cool and really important and a really cool new skill.
Yeah, these are skills that are really important.
It would be very hard for the censors to censor children. It would be, I mean, like if they start like making documentaries and like getting videos out, I mean, like it'd be pretty mean if those fact checkers like censored our children.
Yeah. We could really make them look bad, couldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you. That was amazing. And yeah.
Awesome, Anna. Thank you for just jumping on there. It's really nice to hear from some of the parents in our audience and the people who've connected with the podcast. You know, we like you guys are everywhere and we don't even know who you are. You know, we don't know who you are. You could be anyone, but it's so exciting to meet you all. So thank you for finding us, Anna, you little legend. Yay. One of our high IQ, amazing, smart community makers. All right.
Keep doing what you're doing, guys, because it's amazing. Keep doing it. Yeah?
Boom. That's right. Legends. Legends in the making, Cambell.
Hey.
All right, everyone. Well, look, that's our first episode with our first genius young mind over here willing to talk to us about these concepts. Well done, you. Thanks everyone for watching. We're very serious about connecting the kids with Tartaria and actually teaching them the true history so they can grow up and be the innovators and geniuses behind the new Earth. So this is us being in very positive affirmative action, solving some of these solutions ahead of us. We love you, we honor you, and we will see you soon. So bye from Tartaria Australia.
Thanks, Violetta.
Thanks,
you're welcome.
Wow.